Hi. Today I went and watched the Odyssey and I have some thoughts. I have three main takeaways. This video is one of three, so after this one, you can go ahead and check out the other two, please. And thank you. Look, I've read all the books. I read the Iliad, the Aeneid, and the Odyssey, and I've studied some of the mythology, and I'm a bit of a nerd, so I'm not going to talk about the actors and the controversy around it, around all that. So I'm talking about the plot from this movie and how it's actually all a big metaphor for modern day. So if you don't want spoilers, I recommend that you leave now and come back later when you have some thoughts of your own to share. Okay, 3, 2, 1, bye. Okay, so this one might be a little bit longer because I saw this everywhere and there are so many examples from the movie and one big like real world application. This is about responsibility and accountability. And those are different. So by definition, being responsible means that you follow through and do a task that you said you were going to do, and either that you've given that task to yourself or some authority gave it to you, like an elder or the gods or a captain. And accountability is owning the outcome of the actions, whether you did like a good job or you did a poor job at this task, or if it gave you the desired results or undesirable results. And before I get into it, if you are short on time and you don't want any spoilers at this point, like you didn't leave when I asked you to, the TLDR version of this is one needs to be responsible for themselves and sometimes responsible for other people and sometimes responsible for the stuff that they have power over, where stuff that they can influence. And so when a person is not responsible, they are being irresponsible, or they are breaking a law, then they need to be held accountable either by themselves or they need to be held accountable by a higher authority that is an executor of the law or a judge of the law or a group of the populace, a group of people or society writ large. Okay, so if you have to go at this point, I totally understand. If you want to stick around for some examples and you don't mind spoilers or you've already seen it, then stick around. Okay, so let's start with Odysseus because he's the protagonist here, and frequently throughout this movie, he's reflecting on his actions in the Trojan War and what he was doing as a Greek, what the Greek soldiers were doing, and like what their purpose was in the war. But he has a moment where he realized the war crossed a line for him because he realized that he had a major role in bringing the horse, a gift of peace, to Athena's temple. And Athena is kind of his bestie. And then when they were already in there, her statue was decapitated. So this is the ultimate betrayal, and that scene is portrayed actually really well, I think. And he's like, "Oh my god, that's my girl, and I hurt her. I did that. I realize that now, and I feel bad about it." When he gets home, there's this beautiful scene where he is kind of emotional, where he's talking to Penelope. She doesn't know it's him. And he apologizes to Athena and he acknowledges the damage that he did to their relationship, to the temple, because the Trojans were also worshippers of Athena. They also had faith in Athena. Like they worship the same gods. And in the video where I talk about humanizing your enemies, that connects to that. It's all connected, guys. And there's a detail that stuck out to me because when in one of the retellings or one of the reflections that he has, the point of view is from his eyes, and we're looking at like the back of Agamemnon's head and the helmet. And he looked around, Odysseus looked around like, 10 years we waited at the gates of Troy on the beach, and for what? For this? For what? To what end? And then as they're leaving Troy, Odysseus decides, like, nope, we're going to go another way. We're going to take another route home because he said, I followed Agamemnon for long enough. So even at this point, at the beginning of their journey, he's a soldier, but he's kind of pulling away from that. He's beginning to think for himself and become his own person and starting a journey of like self-discovery in a way. On the journey, they get lost. We know the story. They get lost, and in part of it, he listened to the siren's song, and part of it tells him that he doesn't actually want to go home. And it's likely that he knew he would have to take accountability and answer to Penelope, answer to Athena and the gods. And meanwhile, Athena's looking at him like, It was kind of funny. So my real world application for this is like, if you have wronged someone, owning it and apologizing is probably going to go over a lot better than you think it will. And over time, it will get better and you will feel better about yourself. Okay, so like the accountability part, but still talking about apologies. Helen, like Telemachus goes to Sparta, sees Menelaus and Helen, and as he's leaving, Helen tells him to say sorry to his mother for her because she's sorry that there was a war and it took so many men away from their families. There were lives lost. They were away from home for so long. And she's sorry for the hand that she had in this, for the role that she had in all of this mess. She recognized that there's a cost to war, and she felt bad about it. Even though she didn't directly kill anybody, she's like, no, I had a part in this, and it sucked. I wish it didn't happen, and I'm sorry that it did. And I played a part. So honestly, I liked seeing that, and I can respect her character for that. Throughout Greek mythology, there are many points where if you upset the gods, there's going to be a consequence, and they are swift with that consequence. At some point, Odysseus and his men are on an island, and there are these cows, sacred cows. I can't remember like how they really referred to them. Like, just don't eat the cows. And for a long time they didn't, but then his men did. And he's angry at them, and he's like, oh, you're going to be punished, and I told you the consequence. Like, he heard from Tiresias that if your men eat the cows, they're all going to die. And so he informed them. They knew the consequence, and they did it anyway. But here's the interesting line that came up, is that his shipmate or his co-captain said, we talked about it. Like, me and the crew talked about it. We'd rather suffer the wrath of Poseidon. We'd rather drown by Poseidon's hand and accept the consequence rather than starve. And I thought that was interesting because, again, like, they know the consequence and they're willing to accept it. And they're also having a voice in their own fate, like in their own destiny, and sort of choosing how they die. They've accepted that they're going to die. They're like, let us decide. And they're being accountable for their actions. Again, it relates back to this big theme. And they're dying with integrity, I want to say. Integrity. So the accountability part that sort of clicked into place for me, and this is like a moment that I gasped. Like, I was in the theater and I was like, oh, it's a metaphor. Oh my God. Throughout the movie, everybody's running around talking about Zeus's law, Zeus's law, Zeus's law, and respecting it. It's this reciprocal relationship between a guest and the host. And so this is that the host needs to be accommodating, hospitable, but then the guest also needs to be respectful of customs, of like Greek customs. This is seen in other cultures across the world. I've seen it expressed in different ways when it gets down to details, but it is that like there's just mutual respect in all parties. So in the story of the Odyssey, we have people respecting Zeus's law, and then we have people violating it. Of the people who violate it, Some of them took responsibility for themselves and they made amends, and others don't believe that the law applies to them, or they don't believe in the law. They're like, whatever, Zeus is not even here. Like, I don't even think that Zeus is all that powerful. It's like, and that to me sounds like they think of themselves as more powerful than a god. Or like there's something so special about them that like the power of Zeus can't touch them. Again, they see themselves as like being exempt, or it doesn't apply to them for some reason. So in those instances, accountability was pressed upon them by others. Either they suffered a consequence from the god, or it was somebody else. Like, somebody else had a hand in the punishment, like more directly. In the case of the suitors, they were abusing Ithaca's hospitality, they were physically abusing the dogs and the servants, and they were also plotting to kill Telemachus. And they thought themselves to be in the right. This is where I get a little murky on that because I can see how people were like, what? They were in their rights, whatever, but they were being a-holes. And I think at the end of the day, like, yeah, they violated the law. So they got punished. They died. And the one guy, Robert Pattinson's character, this guy sold out his brother and had his brother go fight the war when it was actually him who drew the lot. And then he abandoned his father to die in poverty. So Odysseus made him confront it. He didn't want to accept responsibility or hold himself accountable. So someone else had to do it for him. This whole thing where Penelope had like heard rumors or these murmurings of like the people of the sea and society is going to collapse because the law of the gods, or respect for the gods and respecting each other, uh, uh, holding holding these customs of their culture, it was like falling to pieces. Like the law of Zeus is in tatters, or like it's been shattered and it doesn't mean anything anymore. People aren't respecting it. She was afraid of like the collapse of society. But Odysseus coming home and everything that unfolded after that is seen as like he's restoring order. And that can be because he's had this character arc and he's grown as a person, and war changed him and his journey changed him. He's taking responsibility for himself and surrendering to whatever possible consequence or punishment that he had. He leaves Calypso and takes a leap of faith. And I think she says, like, you gotta take a leap of faith. He goes on the raft and just surrenders his body to Poseidon. Like, Poseidon, if you want to kill me, go ahead, and I will not stop you. But I think it's in that, it's in having faith in Poseidon and surrendering himself that is like the ultimate declaration of faith, and that's redeeming for him. Okay, now I want you to think about the people in today's world, the people the people on a small scale or a large scale who are not being responsible, and then they're also not being held accountable, or maybe they are being held accountable, but the consequence is not is not matching their level of irresponsibility. The punishment is not matching the level of damage. And these are people who maybe they're wealthy and they think that the money makes them untouchable, or they're people in positions of power and they want to hang on to that power. They might even see themselves as above the law, that the law doesn't apply to them because of their money or because of their power. My challenge or my message for you watching this is, on a personal level, be responsible and accountable for yourself and carry that around with you. If you see something that is irresponsible and you see the person and you see the person who should be accountable, speak up and say, hey, that's not right. Or, hey, that's hurting people. That's hurting somebody. You can use your voice. And on a larger scale, I'm not going to name names, but likely if you are thinking of a name, I'm probably thinking of a name too. If you are one of the people in a governing body, or you are like the assistant to a person in a governing body in a larger panel of judges, maybe people who can hold others accountable by the law, either in the Western world or on an international level, go ahead and use your authority to hold people accountable. And if it's outside of your jurisdiction, talk to people who it is in their jurisdiction. Please, please, please do something. Please speak up. Please take action. Take legal action. And do it by the book, because that's the responsible thing to do. If you can't tell, I'm getting tired and a little bit woo. And so I'm going to stop before I get way too much more into the weeds about this. If you are watching up until this point, you are a real one. Like, I really appreciate you. And I have gone on long enough, but I don't want this to be all one-sided. I really want to know what other people think about this, not just, I mean, on this count, not just about the movie, but about the theme that I'm touching on. Like, what do you think about this? Did you like anything that I said? If you did, you know to give it a thumbs up. And if you think somebody else needs to hear this, you can share that with them. If you want to hear more ideas that I have in the future, you can subscribe. Yeah, what ideas do you have? You can leave it in a comment. And thank you so much for watching up until this point again. Like, I know this was the longer one, and I knew that. I told you that. But this is one of 3 videos about the Odyssey and the themes that I took away from it. So if you watch this one all the way through, give yourself a gold star, a pat on the back, and go check out the other 2. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next one. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. Hopefully it's gonna be cool. Okay, bye!